Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tesla stock today is down close to 3% right now. Here in today's video, we're going to discuss why that is, what's happening, the delivery numbers, broader market news today, everything you need to know. But I'll tell you right now, I'm surprised, not really surprised because of this. Like, I wasn't expecting this, but it happens sometimes. When you get a sell the news event, even on good news, the stock is simply selling the good news. Perhaps maybe I should have known because it looked so bullish yesterday that, even with good news, you're still selling it. But important to differentiate here. When you sell good news, it's still good news, but it's just going to take a little longer for the stock to be reflective of that. So it's not like you got bad news, where bad news can cause a stock to continue to decline. Typically, sell the news events are very short-lived in nature. We'll discuss all of this in today's episode. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and check out the link down below in the description of the trading of this video to come join the trading community. What we're doing is going out finding small cap AI stocks before Wall Street does, okay? We want to be early. Yes, we want to be correct, but we want to be early. We want to be in at the ground floor level. I did just buy another stock today that I'm actually quite excited about. Like, it's something that some members have thrown around for a while, but I did pull the trigger today after doing a relatively deep dive on the company. And yeah, come check it out if you would like to. Link down below in the description of today's episode. But let's get into Tesla stock. So we're obviously going to get into delivery numbers here first things first in today's episode, but I want to start with this news, kind of go in chronological order here. 33.7% of all vehicles sold in Norway in September were Teslas. Their stalls opened, 18% year-over-year network growth, 1.8 terawatt hours delivered, 29% year-over-year growth, 842 megaliters of gasoline saved, 2 billion kg of CO2 offset, 54 million quarterly charging sessions, 31% year-over-year growth, and again, 50,000 Tesla burgers, 100% tastiness. So I hope the Tesla diner thing is something that Tesla pursues, even more, because honestly, I would just love to have them. And I think it's great advertising for not only just the vehicles, but the tech. As you can start to get Optimus that rolls into, more of these. It's an experience, which more and more dining out at places has become more of an experience rather than even the food itself. And I think that is the Tesla diner. And again, Tesla opened 4,000 new supercharger stalls in Q3 2025, more than any other quarter in the company's history, and again, up 18% year over year. Tesla's diner sold as many hamburgers in Q3 as the average McDonald's does in the US, despite the diner having only opened on July 21st, and that Tesla burgers cost 2 times as much because of higher quality ingredients. Tesla sold an average of 704 burgers per day, which is kind of crazy if you break it down like that. I mean, I'm not sure off top the hours of operation. Might be 24 hours. 704 divided by 24. That's an average of almost 30 burgers per day, per hour. Tesla AI X account posted this. They say that Tesla's FSD just turned 5. From beta to supervised to Robotaxi in Austin / ride-hailing service in the Bay Area. Now, yesterday, I want to highlight this. Yesterday, we got news again. This is for a couple of days now we've gotten this kind of news, but there are a bunch of Tesla Robotaxi testing vehicles or validation vehicles in the Dallas area in Texas. It's only a matter of time before the Robotaxi service launches in Dallas and likely in the many surrounding areas, as that's where we have seen the Robotaxi validation vehicles as of lately. So there is another city coming to the Robotaxi network probably very soon. And I think that's probably going to be the catalyst for Tesla. Delivery numbers have become a lot less important versus AI, Robotaxi, even Optimus. People are starting to talk about Optimus a little bit more than they did before. Tesla has added a finance option for the Model Y Performance in the US with a 5.14% APR. Also in big news today, Tesla deployed 12.5 gigawatt hours of energy storage in Q3 2025, their best quarter ever. Tesla Energy is literally killing it. Tesla delivered 497,099 vehicles in Q3, up 7.3% year over year, and their best quarter ever. Wall Street was expecting 443,000. Total Q3 production was 447,450. So they actually ran down inventory here, which is like impressive. This is not something a lot of other auto companies really do. Like a lot of them build up inventory. Tesla actually sold off their inventory almost 50,000 units in Q3, which is just kind of incredible. That should help boost margins as well in this quarter, not to mention the energy storage numbers, which that has the best margins out of any subcomponent of Tesla's business besides AI and FSD, which Tesla does not break down or categorize as of yet. Now, it says here that for the Model 3 and the Model Y, only 2% of deliveries were subject to operating lease accounting. Other models, Cybertruck, Model S, Model X, only 7%. So there was a lot of seems like buying that took place versus leasing. Tesla Manufacturing's X account posted this 1 minute 38 second long clip here that says the Giga casting process at Giga Berlin is now even better. And again, to the point that I made, food these days is less about the food, more about the experience. Just for people to see Optimus and interact with Optimus, that's part of the experience when you go to the Tesla diner. The Tesla Optimus X account says 50,000 Tesla burgers coming right up. So this is something I personally hope they expand on, even though it's not going to be material for the company. It's not going to change much. I think it's pretty cool and great advertising. Now, Porsche is doing something kind of interesting. Their first all-electric Cheyenne SUV has a 14-inch curved flow screen, the largest display ever in a Porsche, with a optimal 15-inch passenger display as well, 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, with a peak of 400 kW charging speed, 108 kilowatt hour battery pack, 10 to 80% charging in under 16 minutes, and 986 horsepower with over 1,100 pound and feet of torque. The screen, though, definitely interesting. Now, Sawyer Merritt says the Tesla Robotaxi app experience has improved a lot since I was last in Austin in June. For multiple pickup point options, estimated time to walk to each pickup point, adding a new stop at the end of your ride, finding the Robotaxi with an arrow, the ride showing up automatically locked, etc. He says it is so much better, which is kind of cool here. 1 minute walk, that's the preferred one here. But other potential, pickup point areas if you choose. Sawyer Merritt says, here's a clip of my Tesla Robotaxi ride in Austin tonight. I took 2 rides. Ride 1 was 3 miles, took 12 minutes, $3.96 for the whole ride, or about $1.32 per mile. Ride 2, 3.62 miles, 16 minutes, and $4.62 for the whole ride, $1.27 per mile, with no issues during either rides. And it says here, the Cybertruck says, you realize I can drive you too, right? Sawyer Merritt says, don't worry, I had you drive me tonight too, which is funny how Tesla interacts with their investor base so much. Herbert here says, do you think they're using FSD 14? Sawyer Merritt says, could be, but I have no idea. The ride was very smooth though. From my understanding, the Robotaxi network is using FSD V14. Elon Musk has said that the Robotaxi version is different than the version that is out with the public today. And I guess I've just speculated, put 2 and 2 together, that it is FSD V14. And we're supposed to get that unlocked to all Tesla drivers over the next week or so. And even institutions have pointed out that FSD V14 could be such an improvement that it's actually a catalyst for the stock. Okay, and then you can even argue if FSD V14 is the Robotaxi version and people start to use that in other cities, maybe you need less Robotaxi validation vehicles, but that's just a speculation on my part. The real catalyst for Tesla, and that's plural, is what cities do they launch in? How quickly do they launch in different cities? What's that, timeline ultimately look like? Those are going to be big catalysts for Tesla. When the next city comes out, that's going to be, a huge catalyst. And I think we're going to get many of them throughout the rest of this year. And Dan Ives says 30 cities next year, which that's going to start becoming a material aspect of Tesla's business. Hopefully help boost profitability as well. In option activity today in Tesla stock from hedge funds and institutions, you have 188 different trades totaling $110 million with a positive order value of 74%. So despite Tesla taking a little bit of a move lower, you still have very bullish option activity. Now, short interest of free float is estimated at 3.05% today. You have 85.59 million shares currently sold short. And it looks like you got about 60,000 shares that are covering today, but I imagine that number is probably far higher. I think people want to take the first chance that they can get to cover on their short positions. Like, as I said in prior videos, you are a fool if you are short in Tesla right now. You deserve to lose money if you are shorting Tesla. Shorting Tesla into a break of new all-time highs on the precipice of Wall Street realizing Tesla is the number 1 physical real-world AI company, and you're short Tesla, that's crazy behavior. Like, you deserve to lose money at that point. And again, I do think a day like today, where we smash delivery numbers, is actually a positive. The knee-jerk sell the news reaction doesn't really matter in my view. Look at the reaction following deliveries. Tesla stock went up to a high of $478 per share, and then people are like, okay, we're going to start selling now. And then the stock reverses. I don't care about the reversal. The news is really what's important. And I think over the coming days, you're going to see the stock reflective of the good news. There's the short-term price action, then the medium-term price action. Sometimes, even with good news, you get a negative or inverse short-term price reaction. But these events tend to be very short-lived and tend to turn out to be very positive. So, we'll see what happens, but that would be my best estimate is we could probably have a really good green day tomorrow, right? For an example. Now, today we were supposed to get the initial jobless claims Government is shut down, so we did not get that. But what we did get today is the Challenger job cuts. Challenger job cuts came in at 54,000. The estimate, 150,000. Last month was 86,000. So this kind of offsets some of the negative jobs report from the ADP report that we got yesterday that was really bad. This says it's not nearly as bad as maybe it looked. We'll see. Challenger job cuts are planned layoffs, not actual layoffs. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But this looks good from my perspective because, again, when you're going into a recession, you do have a lot of planned layoffs, like COVID, right? Planned layoffs went crazy. If you date this all the way back, like I have before, to 2008, you started to get like 200,000+ planned layoffs before we were actually in a recession. Like it was a big red flag. Well, 54,000 beating estimates that much is a sign that maybe Wall Street was a little bit too nervous in the first place. Now, government, again, still is shut down. So tomorrow is going to be a weird day. We're going to get S&P Global Composite PMI, S&P Global Services PMI, ISM Services PMI, employment, new orders, and prices, as well as business activity. But we're not going to get non-farm payrolls, the unemployment rate, government payrolls, manufacturing payrolls, average weekly hours. We're in a little bit of a data blackout from the BLS. Now, government shutdowns historically are bullish for stocks. Historically, they're good for stocks. But again, when there's so much uncertainty what's going on out there, having this data blackout makes the Fed's job a little bit more difficult. It makes investors' job a little bit more difficult trying to sift through the noise and figure out how the economy is doing. Without the non-farm payrolls report, there's that question, how is the September jobs market? You just don't know if we don't get the data. And while that can create some uncertainty, it does likely raise the odds that we do actually get multiple Fed rate cuts from here, right? Because the risk is, we have a month or two data blackout and we start to get the data again and it's really bad and boom, all of a sudden the Fed's behind the curve, right? The Fed doesn't want to be behind the labor market curve as things are starting to look weaker. There's more of a pressure to support the labor market than to fight inflation. So the bias should be to cut rates and figure it out later once we have the information, right? The Fed's not going to pause interest rate cuts because we're not getting BLS data, right? There's more of a bias to cut rates because if we don't have the economic data. So that can be a slight offset positive. For October 29th, you're pricing in a 99.3% chance of a rate cut and a 1% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut. For December 10th, you're pricing in an 83.9% chance of another rate cut, so 2 rate cuts, and then almost a 1% chance of 3 rate cuts, and a 15.5% chance of only 1 rate cut, which is actually down from 17.5% yesterday. So even then, the longer the government is shut down, there will be some negative consequences to the labor market, to household financial positions, and that raises the odds as well of the Fed continuing to cut over the next couple of meetings. So in a weird way, it's actually exactly what Donald Trump wants. Now, in the AI investor sentiment survey that came out today, some interesting things happened. Bullish investors rose from last week. Last week, you were at 41.7%. Today, you're at 42.9%. Neutral investors fell from 19.1% to 17.9%. But look at this. Bearish investors held steady at 39.2%. The bears are holding on for dear life as the markets continue to do well. And now that we are out of that September seasonal weakness, it becomes harder and harder to make the bearish case, right? We're heading into the holidays. 2026 looks good. Big, beautiful bill. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. With rate cuts and real estate can start to move around again. It becomes very hard in October, November, December to even have a bear thesis, right? Like, you really need to see some kind of shock on trade or some kind of shock in general to get me bearish at this point. The CNN Fear and Greed Index is at 50, which is exactly neutral. Again, that adds to my bearish thesis because you have so many bears out there. Markets are only neutral. That likely means you have room to continue higher. Market momentum is neutral. Stock price strength is greed. Stock price breadth is fear. Put and call options, extreme greed. Market volatility is neutral. Safe haven demand and greed, and junk bond demand currently in extreme fear. If we take a look at the percent of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average, currently at 53.13%. This is pretty average for the last 5 years. You're kind of in this neutral zone. So you're not super extended to the upside. You're also not super depressed to the downside. So not much of a cue that we're getting out of that. Now, Trump touts the shutdown as an unprecedented opportunity to cut more Democratic priorities. President Donald Trump said Democrats gave him an unprecedented opportunity to slash government agencies during the government shutdown. The Trump administration recently said it froze about $18 billion for New York City infrastructure projects and canceled another $8 billion for climate projects in Democratic-leaning states. Trump said he will meet with Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought on Project 2025 author to discuss cutting what he called Democrat agencies. So I do think hearing Trump say something like that, kind of being on the offensive against Democrats, likely makes Democrats probably want to fund the government and, drop some of the radical policies that they are trying to have adopted. Not to go on in a, politic tangent here, but you just can't give illegal immigrants free health care, right? You can't give them food stamps or none of that. I was struggling as a household of 5 with literally no wiggle room. I couldn't get a food card. You know how many times I had to go to the pantry to get food? More than I would like to admit. I couldn't get the help. Yeah, we're going to leave that one there. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. If you would like to come trade with us, come get involved with us, come conversate with me and many of the other members over there, now well over 200, check it out. Before enrollment is cut off, again, I don't want that community to grow so large that it's impossible to have conversations, impossible to know everyone. Okay, that's not the goal of that. Okay, so yeah, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.